Hello and welcome to this edition of Southern Maryland Focus. I'm your host, Sharon Bell, and joining me today is Naomi Hurley and Joy Schrum. We're going to talk about all the indictments for drug dealers being charged with murder. So, should drug dealers be charged with murder?
I do not think drug dealers should be charged with murder. I know that kind of the stipulation here is that this heroin is being cut with fentanyl, but my argument for that is, were these drug dealers the ones really cooking this stuff up, or are they secondhand getting this supply from someone else?
So what if they were cutting it?
If they're cutting it themselves with fentanyl, then I'm not entirely familiar with fentanyl, but I know, clearly from what we've heard, you need to be wearing gloves to handle it. It's definitely a deadly,
it's a powerful drug.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in that case, if they're purposely, knowingly cutting it with this stuff, then yeah, I think so. But at the same time, these addicts are they're willingly doing these drugs, and everyone knows heroin, it can kill you. These drugs are extremely dangerous, so I don't think they should be charged with murder.
I do. Particularly in the cases where they're able to prove in a court of law that the drug dealers did in fact cut the drugs with fentanyl and carfentanil. That's the big one now.
If they can prove that the drug dealer knew that.
Because when I spoke with Sheriff Cameron about this problem after the indictments were handed down, he explained to me that these drug dealers, they are very aware of how dangerous these drugs are, and like Naomi just said, they wear gloves, they wear masks, they wear sleeves, especially when we're talking about carfentanil. Just a milligram of that ingested or even on your skin can be fatal.
Right.
So if these drug dealers are in fact mixing these powerful opioids with heroin to make some extra money,
right,
and they know that it can kill someone, that's on them.
What if they don't know, and they're all addicts, which I would assume most drug dealers are addicts, but maybe they're not. And they're just, they are the seller. And, here comes a buyer, and no one is aware that there's any other narcotics in there.
Right.
Should they be held accountable?
I don't think so. Because, if you take that logic in hand, if somebody dies of alcohol poisoning, you don't see Patron getting charged with murder. If somebody...
Right. No, but bartenders sometimes are charged, maybe not with murder, but there have been cases, right, where bartenders or restaurants have been charged in connection with, binge drinkers who, like you said, just...
OD.
Or not OD, but,
poisoning.
Alcohol poisoning, right.
And same with, cigarettes. If someone gets lung cancer from smoking their entire life, you don't see Marlboro or
but you do.
Newport. They get charged with murder?
Not charged with murder, but there have been,
but not anymore.
Well, you're right.
Yeah.
There had been several civil lawsuits against Philip Morris and those types of...
There's a warning on the side of that pack.
Because of those types of lawsuits,
So maybe a drug dealer needs to put a warning on it.
You see that now. There's this case now against Johnson & Johnson baby powder.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
There's a woman who's suing for, ovarian cancer, right?
They won. Or the spouse did.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that case.
Yeah.
I think it comes to the point, though, too, where, the cops have to do something. They have to go after someone. And sometimes you need to go up the supply chain, and it's not going to just stop at the dealers. It needs to go farther. Are
they going after the user? Are they going after the dealers? In this case, the user has died. Who's accountable for that user dying? Shouldn't you be accountable for yourself?
I think you are accountable.
And I think in a lot of cases in today's society, you're not accountable for yourself. So many people are suing people or blaming other people for their own actions. And it's their own action that caused their death.
It's undoubtedly a tragedy. It's awful.
These
people are sons and daughters, siblings. These are, well-loved members of our community, and it's awful they've died. But at the end of the day, they're addicts, and they chose to
live that life.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then you have those who do argue that an addiction is a mental illness, that it's truly a disease. And when these people become addicted,
I don't know if I believe that.
It's... But again, that's the argument, and it's hard for us to say because none of us are in that position. But when you talk to recovering addicts and they explain that basically they wanted to feel better about themselves, and
right. No, I do actually agree with that. I think that addiction is a mental I don't know if disorder is the right
that's
word,
a whole
but
other issue.
it is a whole other issue. That's true. But I mean, these people do have, a lot of them do have addictions, and they feel this need in order to feel normal to use. But at the end of the day, the drug dealer shouldn't be charged for that. They didn't force them to get addicted.
That drug dealer is not forcing them to do the drugs. Now, as for what Cameron was saying, they wear the gloves and whatnot. Maybe they're doing that out of caution, because they themselves do not know if the guy above is cutting the drugs.
Well, again, he was explaining it that a lot of these people know exactly what they're mixing, that they have their hands on.
Like I said, if they're mixing it and they can prove that that drug dealer mixed it, he absolutely should be charged with murder.
Right.
But if they're just pushing it, I really don't think that they should be charged with murder, because that addict, whether it's a disease or not, he made that choice to do drugs.
I agree.
It's going to be interesting to see how these cases play out in court. What evidence is brought forth on the prosecution by the state's attorney, and see what they really have against. There's 8 indictments, and some of these people aren't even from this area. I mean, the one man was from Norfolk. So I'm really anxious to see, again, what evidence is brought forward.
Are there any court dates yet?
No, right now most of them are still even waiting for bond reviews and their initial appearances. I imagine it's going to be a little while before these folks
it's probably going to be time.
Go. Yes, I would imagine sometime maybe March of 2018 we'll probably start seeing those cases go to trial.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Thanks for joining Southern Maryland Focus, and if you have any questions or comments that you would like to send us on this segment, send them to focus@thebaynut.com.
Come to the 15th Annual Riverside Wine Fest at Sauterly October 7th and 8th, celebrating the very best regional wineries in the beautiful setting of 17th century Sauterly Plantation. Enjoy spectacular views as you sample the wines of nearly 20 Maryland wineries, as well as craft beers and delicious local food. Winefest is moving up to our historic core. Discover history with wine in hand in front of the 1703 Plantation House. Come to the 15th Annual Riverside Wine Fest at Sauterly October 7th and 8th.